Let's get specific about the syntax when we create queries. As we saw in the presentation earlier, the syntax is actually fairly simple for creating most queries. You have to choose a field you'd wish to search. Then you have to choose how you wish to search that field. And then you have to enter something that you'd like to search for. That seems to be the pattern in most cases. There are certain times when that is not the case, but those are usually fairly self-explanatory because of the type of data that you're searching for. The big deal is, of course, that every time you create a query, we have the autocomplete functionality that pops in, and it does its best to give you a understanding of what you can do with what you've typed. Let's get started. If I wanted to start out with nothing in the thing, all I gotta do is just type a letter. Any letter will do. I'm gonna type the letters E, P. Notice that when I type in the letters E and P, and I don't put a space between them, I get all examples of possible matches for E and P. Notice that they're not necessarily right next to each other. Here's the E in endpoint machine type, and here's the E and the P in endpoint name, and so on and so forth. As you can see, the lookup is very forgiving. As long as you have a couple letters of what you're trying to get to, then you can get the information that you require. One of the tricks that I can show you is when you are not quite sure you remember the one you need, you can literally go through the alphabet and just look through what pops up in case you don't want to go look it up for yourself. There's all the C stuff, D, E, F, and so on. Just a real quick way to go through each one. Once you do have the list up, you have to use the arrow keys to move around. Note that when you move around, we have the string, the type of variable this is. The file path is a string variable. However, most times when you put your mouse over it, does give you an ellipsis. If this does get cut off, if you click the I, it'll bring it out into a separate window to give you all the information. And then you can scroll down through and easily read what each one is. There are a few different types of variables that you can search for. Numeric is obviously things that have to do with numbers. String is anything that actually has alphanumeric characters in it. Enum are specific lists of items. So in this case, the firmware test status has a specific set of possible answers. It is possible to actually list out those answers with the autocomplete, which we'll show in a moment. The only other one that exists, those two, there's date time, and there is Boolean as well. There it is. So those are the types that are out there. Depending on the type of field you are searching, you will get different comparison items. So let's first look at a string just to show you what kind of information we can look for in a string. So I'm going to use the word file path. I'm going to select it and hit enter or return, and it puts it in there. Now I have a little squiggly line underneath it because that's not enough information yet for a full query. As long as I have the name in there and there's a space after it, now when I tap the tab button again, it will give me all of the comparison options that exist. Again, it gives me the description to the right. So bang equal is items that do not have the string or number. However, anytime you deal with an equal sign, it is exactly equal. So if I were to put something in this case, not equal to and say some string, this would mean that in that file path, it would have to be not equal to capital SOME, capital STRING, and that's it. If I want it to be more specific or more generic with the, if I want it to be more generic than capital SOME, capital STRING, then I would have to choose something different. Equal is very specific, including case. However, since we're here, let's look at the fact that whatever I'm searching for does go in double quotation marks. These double quotation marks do have to be the normal quotation marks, not the special ones you get out of a Word document or a lot of other notepad type systems. If they have the forward slanting and the backward slanting versions, it will not accept those. So do be aware of that if you begin to copy and paste queries from other sources. Let's check out some of the other ones. In order for me to actually make that go away, I can highlight this. I can delete it. And again, there has to be a space. And then I can click on the tab key to get other options. This would be something that is not a partial string. Again, though, it is specific to an exact partial string, including case. Exactly equals. Contains allows you to say, okay, I want to look for something that is possibly, there might be more. So if I choose contains, and the entire file path contains start, run, something or other, but I know the file path contains something like WMIC, then this would allow me to search for any files that are, or any hits where the file path contains those letters. Now, this has to be very specifically small w, small m, small I, small c. And if it was a capital in any one of those cases, it would not return. If you want to ignore case, then you have two options for contains. There is any case and contains CIS, which stands for contains case insensitive. The difference between these is nothing. My guess is that contain CIS came out first. It was not clear as to what exactly it was, and so they created contains any case. And in order to not break the queries that existed out there, they kept the original version as well. Moving on down through, a lot of these are self-explanatory. Does not contain, case insensitive. Okay. Exists. This one allows you to actually get away with everything. This is a complete one. File path exists. So if I were going to bring back any item where file path is actually filled out. Things like this can be useful if you're just looking to see if any data got stored at all. Sometimes you begin to try to find something and you're not getting any results. And so you try different queries and you're getting no results. And you're not entirely sure why you're not getting anything. You can go back to a file path exists variable over a period of time, or whatever the variable happens, string variable happens to be, to make sure that you're actually even seeing results on the back end. You might be searching for something that doesn't actually exist. For example, maybe the computer is not online, or maybe for some reason it is not communicating with the data lake. And so all of your queries are going by and being useless because no information is being uploaded. Sometimes that does happen. It can be annoying, but at least then you know why none of your queries are getting to be are successful. However, if you do this and you do get some data, and then when you actually put in the remaining portions of your query and you get nothing, of course that means that your query is blocking the information you are trying to accomplish. Moving on from exists, we've got ends with any case, ends with CIS. Of course, these two would be the same. Is empty or is not empty. Self-explanatory. In is unique, and I'm going to move on to the next couple here. In any case, and in contains any case. All of these, of course, are very similar, and what I can do is I can actually I'll use the most broad in this case, which is in contains any case. In this one, I can start listing off several different things. If I want a file that contains WMI, I enter that, and then I put in a comma, a space, and then something else. I also want all the ones that are WMIC, comma, space. Oop, forgot my quotation marks. I could also use PowerShell. So here's my complete command. I'm looking for any file path that contains the substrings WMI, WMIC, or PowerShell, and that it is an OR. You don't have to have all of them. Any one of them will do, and it'll return that string. I'm going to take a pause on our discussion for deep visibility syntax at this moment, and we'll continue with this in the next video.